Today we are checking out Sonic's darkest lore, the horror of Project Shadow. I don't know what happened to this man, but I'm here to find out.
The ultimate life form of chaos vengeance.
Turn it up a little bit.
Supersonic.
I turned it up.
Professor Gerald.
What's all this?
About 50 years ago.
Sonic Adventure 2. Last episode. Wishes are eternal.
Hey everyone, Chomix here. When you think of the Sonic the Hedgehog series, you'll usually think of brightly colored and whimsical environments, cartoony animal characters, and lighthearted fun.
Yes.
Unless you're a Sonic Adventure fan. Yeah, it's no secret that both of these games had some pretty dark undertones. Sonic Adventure 1 had that whole war with the Echidna tribe being brutally wiped out by Chaos, all after waging a bloody war for the Chaos Emeralds.
It's like
and
sacrificing?
these cute little chow creatures over here? Yeah, they obliterated them.
Wow.
They knew too much. But Sonic
What did they
Adventure
know?
2 took it even darker. It involves government conspiracies, assassinations, and biological experiments gone wrong. And it all stems from a scientist attempting to play God. It's a plot that requires patching together piece by piece, because the game never explains the story in a straightforward or organized way.
But you got me?
Join me today as we take a deep dive into the lore of one of the darkest plot points of the entire Sonic the Hedgehog series.
I bet.
The events of Project Shadow.
Okay. Are y'all locked in, chat? Y'all locked in? I like that intro. I'm gonna subscribe just for that. He got me feeling things.
Over 50 years before the events of Sonic Adventure 2, we have Gerald Robotnik,
Okay.
renowned scientist and grandfather to none other than our very own Dr. Eggman. This scientific genius seems to run in the family, but in complete contrast to his grandson, Gerald is devoted to using science to make the world a better place.
Is he?
One of his greatest accomplishments being the Space Colony Ark, the world's first satellite colony allowing people to live in space. It's an incredibly advanced research center created by Gerald for the purpose of allowing great scientists such as himself to conduct research and perform experiments for the greater good of mankind.
Okay.
Gerald has a very close bond with his beloved granddaughter, Maria Robotnik.
So he took his daughter to space, or his granddaughter? I don't know. Something ain't right here. It smells a little fishy.
Bond with his beloved granddaughter, Maria Robotnik.
Why she look like that?
After all, she lives on the Ark with him, as she has an incurable and terminal illness called neuroimmune deficiency syndrome.
My fault. I judged him too early. She's up there because he wants to heal whatever she has going on with her neuroimmune system. I got you. My fault. That's on me. I judged him too quickly.
After all, she lives on the Ark with him, as she has an incurable and terminal illness called neuroimmune deficiency syndrome. And apparently the low gravity could help keep her condition in remission. But this wasn't enough for Gerald. He devoted himself to finding the cure for his granddaughter's disease through science. During this time, Gerald received a request from the president of the United Federation, the Sonic Universe's equivalent to the United States, a research program called Project Shadow. It would be dedicated to developing the formula for immortality.
Oh, so wait, Shadow is immortal?
Initially, Gerald refused, as he felt that he would be playing God and that it could possibly be used as some sort of biological weapon for war by gun, or the guardian units of nations, which was essentially the United Federation's military. Anyways, it was all morally gray areas Gerald did not want to put his foot in. But he soon realized that something like this could lead to a medical breakthrough, the perfect solution for curing Maria of her illness.
I don't get the connection.
He obliged.
He creates a perfect being and thinks the perfect being can like heal her or something. What's the connection there? He works on a project to make a perfect being or immortal being, but how does that help his granddaughter? Is he going to do like genetic mutation or something? I don't understand.
Something like this could lead to a medical breakthrough, the perfect solution for curing Maria of her illness. So he obliged. Such a task seemed impossible at first. Despite the pessimism from his colleagues, Gerald Robotnik spent a great amount of effort researching this formula for immortality. But where to even begin? Luckily for Gerald, there just so happened to be a set of 7 mystical gems capable of granting miracles and unlimited power. We all know them, the Chaos Emeralds. If Gerald could just replicate their powers, surely he could convert their energy into a means of granting immortality, right? So he began
I'm not gonna lie, the apple don't fall that far from the tree. Both the granddad and the grandson are using Chaos Emeralds to fuel their research.
If Gerald could just replicate their powers, surely he could convert their energy into a means of granting immortality, right? So he began experimenting with ways of replicating the Chaos Emerald's energy and created the Chaos Drives. The Chaos Drives needed to be created in such a way that living beings would be able to consume their energy. So Gerald began thinking of a vessel that would be able to properly handle this kind of power.
Shadow.
It's heavily implied that Gerald based a lot of his research on ancient depictions of such a vessel. The Mystic Ruins, the very land that Angel Island, home of the Master Emerald, was split away from. It had ties to the ancient clan of Echidnas that fought over the infinite power of the Chaos Emeralds. It was possible that remnants from this extinct clan held some clues to this formula for immortality. Well, it turns out that deep in one of these Echidna shrines, Gerald happened across an enormous mural. This mural depicted a water serpent devouring an ancient city, with carvings of jewels that seemed very similar to the Chaos Emeralds. We know this water serpent as Perfect Chaos from the first Sonic Adventure game. Gerald thought that it was possible that this creature had the ability to harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds.
I don't think so. It looks kind of evil. Gerald, you smart as hell, but look at that. It just screams evil. Why would you put power into that?
So he began basing several of his prototype experiments after it. The ultimate life form. Someone or something that could never become ill, wither away with age, or die. The experiment started off as a pretty straightforward interpretation of this creature from the mural. We can actually see these experimental creatures inhabiting the Ark during the events of Sonic Adventure 2. First, we have the Artificial Chaos P1 variant, which is clearly modeled after Perfect Chaos from the mural. Its body is entirely made up of water and has an almost identical shape to that of Chaos.
Look kind of weird.
It seems to retain both its shape and sentience from this headpiece found on top of it. And then there's the Artificial Chaos P100 variant.
Yo, what are y'all showing me?
Whose body
this is like a gym workout. You know how you get on them big balls? All right. I knew there's a different way of saying that, but honestly, that's the only thing I can think of. Don't clip that and make it seem like I'm talking about big balls on other people's streams, bro. That's a huge ball right there.
And then there's the Artificial Chaos P100 variant, whose body takes a larger, more circular shape. It's able to split itself up into tinier versions of itself, with the helmet acting as the master controller. These experiments were good steps in the right direction, but the issue was that these Artificial Chaos were just that. Artificial. How could Gerald move forward to apply this same energy to a biological life form? Well, he would take what he learned from these Artificial Chaos experiments and begin his work on the prototype of the first ultimate life form, the biolizard.
I was close. I saw a lizard.
Its rate of growth was incredibly fast. It had the ability to regenerate and even self-reproduce. And its organs were capable of utilizing the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Everything seemed very promising at first, but the scientists quickly realized that the biolizard was very, very flawed. Its limbs proved to be weak. So weak that it didn't even possess the ability to walk. But worst of all, the biolizard's nature grew extremely violent and primitive.
If I was to make a perfect life form, why would it be a lizard? I just don't understand that. The perfect life form to me, if there is one, wouldn't be a fucking lizard.
The biolizard's nature grew extremely violent and primitive, and it became too difficult to control at times. As the biolizard continued to grow at an exponential rate, it required an enormous life support system powered by the Chaos Drives
it don't even
just
look
in
perfect.
order to sustain its own life. Eventually, an entire specialized room was created just to help the biolizard live. This room curiously contained an altar for the Master Emerald, likely another result of Gerald's research on the Echidna tribe and Chaos Emeralds. It was most likely supposed to be a way to neutralize the beast's power in case it went on a destructive rampage. This was a very dangerous and unpredictable creature that they had on their hands.
Crazy.
So the biolizard experiments were eventually abandoned, and it was sealed into this specialized room.
Was it?
Word may or may not have leaked out to Gunn about the details of this experiment, including all of the potential danger it possessed.
The name is Gunn. They're going to do something with guns. Like, that's the easiest thing to tell right there. They get a whim of anything, they're going in there blazing.
Have leaked out to Gunn about the details of this experiment, including all of the potential danger it possessed. After all, complaints from internal staff about feasibility of this project and even the safety of their own lives were making their way all around the Ark. But meanwhile, Gerald would take what he learned from the biolizard experiments and begin work on a new ultimate life form, hoping to remove the flaws that plagued his first prototype. It's here that Gerald must have found some new inspiration, because his idea for this next experiment would take a much different direction. Instead of basing this next life form on some enormous reptilian, he would downsize to something a lot more streamlined. It's heavily implied that Gerald did some additional research at this point, this time on Angel Island itself, for more clues on the perfect vessel for the ultimate life form. It's highly probable that Gerald found the ancient mural in Hidden Palace Zone, the one from Sonic 3 and Knuckles that foretells the events of Doomsday Zone, depicting the battle between an enormous evil entity and a supercharged hedgehog. Obviously a reference to Dr. Eggman and Supersonic's battle at the end of the game. So Gerald got to work, and eventually the ultimate life form was born, modeled after this supercharged hedgehog from the mural. Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate life form.
Does Sonic know that Shadow was made in his image? That would be an interesting conversation.
Shadow was both very similar and dissimilar to the biolizard. First, he possessed immortality and many of the same chaos control inducing abilities as his predecessor. But unlike the biolizard, Shadow did not need machinery in order to live. He was perfectly capable of functioning, completing tasks, and making decisions on his own.
Why you got this evil music up?
He was incredibly strong, agile, intelligent, and fast. But possibly most importantly, his soul was based off of Maria's. You see, Gerald was still very skeptical about the United Federation's true intentions with Project Shadow. In the case something were to go wrong and Shadow would end up being used as a weapon, he had faith that modeling Shadow's soul after Maria would lead Shadow to the correct moral choices in the end.
I don't get that. I mean, it is a video game, but damn, like, what? How he do that? Can you even do that? Recently, I heard you can download somebody's brain or their mind and put it into like a computer chip. I don't know how true that is, but that is something I definitely heard recently.
Used as a weapon, he had faith that modeling Shadow's soul after Maria would lead Shadow to the correct moral choices in the end. Shadow quickly became acquainted with many of the people living on the Ark, including Maria herself,
just like the 100,
who he would become very attached to. The two would naturally spend a lot of time together, as Maria's condition kept her pretty rooted to certain rooms. And Shadow had plenty of downtime during his time living on the Ark. They would often have deep philosophical conversations with one another. Shadow had doubts about his true purpose in life, but Maria was always there to assure him that things would be okay. Their conversations and time spent together meant everything to Shadow, but in many ways, they both felt trapped inside of the Ark and wanted to do their best to help the people back on the surface have a better future. Both Shadow and Maria longed to visit the Earth together. They made a promise that when Maria was better and Shadow was finished with Gerald's experiments, they one day would. Meanwhile on Earth, Gunn was getting nervous about the potential dangers and costs of Project Shadow. Word about the dangerous experiments with the biolizard had leaked out to them after all. And not only were they worried about this monstrosity that they created, they were worried about this information finding itself in the hands of the public. Gunn and the United Federation did not want the public to know about these experiments they were conducting up on the Ark, so they made the executive decision to put a stop to Gerald's experiments.
This is when they murked them?
It wasn't as simple as asking the team to cease their work. They had to ensure everyone on the Ark would remain silent about Project Shadow.
They killed everybody on the Ark? Oh my gosh, that is kind of crazy. No NDAs? No NDAs at all. Just kill everybody on the Ark.
They had to ensure everyone on the Ark would remain silent about Project Shadow. And there was only one way they could guarantee this.
You know,
the ultimate life form was nearly complete. And just as Gerald put the finishing touches on his life's work, the space colony Ark was invaded by a swarm of gun soldiers.
Dang.
Everyone on board the Ark was to be executed.
Everyone
except for Gerald and Shadow. Gunn's plan was simple.
Even the daughter, they purposely wanted to kill the daughter. That's crazy, bro. Killing somebody's granddaughter. She was on a hit list. Y'all had her on the hit list and she was already sick. She was gonna die anyway.
Gunn's plan was simple. Destroy all evidence of Project Shadow, including anyone that knew of its existence, and falsely blame it on an experiment gone wrong, an accident caused by Gerald Robotnik.
That's
all
OD.
Taking the ultimate life form for themselves.
They gonna blame him
With
and
their
keep him
plan in
alive?
motion, Gunn began to slaughter all of the scientists on board of the Ark. During the attack, Gerald entrusted and instructed Maria to take Shadow and leave the Ark via an escape pod.
Okay.
They would make their way, but a group of Gunn soldiers intercepted them, and Maria would end up getting hit by a bullet. Shadow would take out this group of soldiers, and the two limped the rest of their way to the escape pods.
I got a question.
Maria mortally
You could have showed me that a little bit, some gameplay, bro. I can't imagine it, bro. I don't have the best imagination. You could have showed me a little snippet of what it looked like.
Shadow would take out this group of soldiers, and the two limped the rest of their way to the escape pods. Maria, mortally injured, used the last of her strength to activate the escape pod for Shadow and give him her final words.
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do it for me. For Maria! Future, for all people who live on that planet.
The voice acting is horrible. I could have done better than this.
Shadow, go live a better life. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's
She look high as hell.
you were brought into this world.
Chat, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what she said, bro. She didn't even know what she was saying.
Completely traumatized, Shadow was then ejected from the Ark down to Earth, never to see his beloved Maria again. All on the Ark were killed that day, and Gerald was taken into custody and placed on Prison Island. He had gotten word from Gunn that one of the escape pods had ejected. Obviously, this meant that Maria and Shadow had escaped, right? But eventually he would learn that Maria was one of the names on the list of those who perished on the Ark. And after learning of his granddaughter's death, Gerald would never be the same.
That was his whole
Meanwhile,
purpose.
Gunn managed to track down the escape pod and gain possession of Shadow. They put him in a state of suspended animation and secured him deep inside of their facilities, where he would remain dormant for years. Gerald would then be forced to continue his work on Project Shadow, this time under much more strict supervision from Gunn. But the idea of losing Maria would strike him with incredible grief, and eventually Gerald would go insane. During his continued work on Project Shadow, he would scribble formulas on his cell wall. This would be the beginning of his plan to exact revenge on the world for what they took away from him.
I'm not gonna lie, and if I was one of the guards, I would go in there and be confused. I would tell somebody though, I would snitch for sure, but I wouldn't be able to decipher that. I have no idea what none of those letters and words meant. So once I tell somebody and y'all don't do enough to like erase it or something, I'm quitting. Oh, they would try to kill me too. Fuck!
Even under heavy Gunn supervision, Gerald somehow managed to work under their noses and create a doomsday program.
Told y'all, he's too
scripted
smart.
to cause the space colony Ark to collide and destroy the Earth once all 7 Chaos Emeralds were placed into the Ark's Eclipse Cannon. The Eclipse Cannon was a weapon attached to the Ark with the original intent to destroy celestial objects posing a threat to Earth, but Gerald had now modified it to be used against Earth. He then altered Shadow's mind to carry out this plan to bring all 7 Chaos Emeralds to the Ark upon being reawakened.
That's kind of messed
He
up.
even reprogrammed the biolizard as a failsafe to ensure this plan was saw through until the very end. All of the pieces were now in place, and Gerald's plan to exact revenge on humanity was set up to play out completely on its own.
He is in prison. How did he do all this? See, that's why y'all can't let smart motherfuckers get back to work for y'all when y'all have them in jail. Because they're going to be thinking the whole time, how can I get revenge? Or how can I get out of here?
All of the pieces were now in place, and Gerald's plan to exact revenge on humanity was set up to play out completely on its own. Gunn would eventually become suspicious and decide to completely stop all work relating to Project Shadow. And rather than having Gerald sit around as a potential danger, the last thing for them to do was to get rid of the one final remnant of these ungodly experiments.
They gonna blick him?
Gerald himself. Gerald Robotnik was sentenced to execution by firing squad. Gunn would finally put an end to Project Shadow.
Firing
or
squad?
so they thought. The events of Sonic Adventure 2 lead to Gerald's plan unfolding exactly how he imagined. Shadow is reawakened by Eggman. The Chaos Emeralds are placed into
Did he know his grandson was gonna be evil?
The Ark begins its collision towards Earth.
He that smart?
However, one thing Gerald didn't account for was Shadow's soul. Remember, it was modeled after Maria, and in the end, Shadow remembers his promise to her, to give humanity a chance. The Earth that they both long to visit together.
Oh, he cried.
Rather than destroy it, Shadow remembers his promise to Maria and chooses to protect it.
They gonna transform? Hell yeah! Transform! Super Sonic! Super Shadow! Yeah! Wait, why they do that animation? They like they was being imaginary dicks. Y'all saw that? Y'all cannot tell me it don't look like they be imaginary cocks. I don't know if I can look at y'all the same no more. I seen what y'all just did.
With the Ark only mere seconds away from colliding with the Earth, Shadow uses the last of his energy to warp the Ark via Chaos Control off of its collision course. Shadow would sacrifice himself in the end to protect humanity,
That's
keeping
Iron
his
Man.
promise to the one person who meant everything to him.